Good morning. Hi, this is Maria Quattrone with Be the Solution podcast. And my belief is that we should live our lives by providing values to others by being the solution. Our purpose is to teach others how to be their own solution. And our goal is to help our listeners become the solution. Our mission is to inspire people to be a better problem solver. And our vision is to change the way that people think. What if everybody lived their life by being the solution? Welcome, Liz Faircloth, today to Be the Solution. Good morning, Liz.
Good morning, Maria. Thank you for having me on your show.
So excited to see you.
Yeah, so nice to see you.
Gosh, you've been doing so many amazing things.
Oh, thank you.
I love your journey, and I would love for you to share some of that with our listeners.
Sure. I grew up in, I don't know how back you want me to go.
It's your show, Liz.
My whole life story. I grew up in New Jersey. I was a Jersey girl for most of my life until I went to the dark side of Pennsylvania and moved to Pennsylvania. But grew up in New Jersey, grew up in a hardworking middle-class family who I'm very appreciative of, and who my father actually gave us our first loan for our first property. So, I'm always very appreciative of our family support. But my parents, worked really hard, instilled those qualities of just work ethic in us and saving. And you saved and you didn't overspend. My parents never had credit card debt. Those sort of things. We lived, a middle-class life. And I know that the extras, if you will, like going out to dinner was a big deal in my family. Those kinds of things that some people take for granted now, right?
It was a special, going out to dinner was a special thing, right?
Very special.
It was super exciting.
Yeah.
It wasn't often.
Not often. And it was like a big deal, right?
I talk about that a lot, about how restaurants have now, or not restaurants, going out to eat has become just like no big deal.
No big deal.
Although right now, I think it's probably more of a big deal that we get to go back out to eat.
Exactly, because of everything with COVID, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you think back at 30 years ago or 40 years ago, 50 years ago, people, it was a very special occasion. And, most nights you eat home. Mom cooked dinner, or I cooked dinner.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you really come to appreciate those little things, those little pieces of your background. And, from like, I do a lot of talking around like your money relationship with your money, with money. And you just, as you invest, that's something you have to look at. And there's probably pieces of it that you have to grow through or work through, unless you were raised in a way that it was like, in a way that works for you. But for many people, they have to look at that and say what worked, what didn't. And what do I want my life to be now, And so long story short, went to college, which was great. I got my degree in psychology. Always wanted to help people. That was always something in my DNA. My parents joke that I used to like sit in the bathroom for hours, which is interesting. I don't think I was even going to the bathroom. But anyway, I used to I used to make believe I was talking to people and helping them. And I was like 7 or 8 or 9 years old. And they used to tell me that that's something I did a lot. So I laugh because I do love helping people. I just think it's like, that's interesting. I probably escaped my family. I was the youngest of 3 girls. I was the baby. So I probably was escaping my crazy Italian family. Anyway, so I got my psych degree. What's that?
Most likely.
Yeah. Get away from these people. Long story short, I ended up going to graduate school for social work. And I wanted to open my own practice. I wanted to be a therapist. That was always my goal. And I went straight on from college to grad school. So I didn't even have a lot of professional experience to think about that. But when I get a goal in my mind, that's what I want. And that's what I go for. So I moved quickly. I went to Penn. And while I was there, I actually took an entrepreneurial class. And that kind of opened my eyes to just entrepreneurship and business. And I'm like, oh, this is like, I came from psychology and social work, and it's like this whole new world. The same time, my brother-in-law, who was the only entrepreneur I knew or ever met in my whole life up on that point, gave me Rich Dad, Poor Dad and said, you have to read this book. And I said, okay, if you think so. And he's like, it's going to change your life. I'm like, okay. I was probably, 21 at the time. And I read it and I'm like, whoa, this is interesting, right? Passive income. And Kiyosaki talks about real estate and, building a business, and it's the importance of sales. And I'm like, these are all things that I was not thinking about. I was on this trajectory of being a therapist, not, someone who's interested in business and real estate. So fast forward, I ended up not working and becoming a therapist. I actually got my degree and then ended up getting a job that was completely different. It was for a consulting firm. And my goal with that was to learn sales and learn how to really sell, because we were selling consulting services. Now, meanwhile, I'm like 22 and I'm like, you need to work with us, who's going to want to listen to a 22-year-old? But I was very grateful for that. I stayed there for about a decade, working both with my husband on our rental portfolio, building that, but also in the throes of corporate. And I was very grateful for that because I learned how to sell and influence people, which is so critical, right? And that's what he talks about, a skill that Kiyosaki talks about.
Yeah. No matter what field you're in, you're always selling yourself and your story,
which is critical, and how you do it in a way that works for you, right? So at the same time, when I decided to not get a traditional job, if you will, or degree, really use my master's degree the way most of my colleagues were getting, because you get your master's level, you're kind of serious, right? You're going to utilize your master's degree to do something with it. Meanwhile, I completely shifted. That entrepreneur class was very eye-opening. Is pivotal for me because I actually created a business plan to create an organization to help women. Now, that was 20 years ago. It was 20 years before we started the Real Estate Investor. However, it was like this seed that was planted, right? So I just think and I forgot about it.
It wasn't just an overnight success that happened.
Yeah, it was like this. It's like this.
20 years in the making.
Exactly. There's people always say, right? Everyone you think's like an overnight success is minimum 10 years, minimum. And so I put that on the side and never did anything with it, but I wanted to support women back then, and I was 22. So at the same time, I met my now husband, and I gave him Rich Dad Poor Dad. People are like, oh, your husband must have got you into real estate. I'm like, no, I got my husband into real estate. We did it together. We actually started together, and we were dating. And before we got married for at least a year and a half, we went to DIG, which is the local RIA group in Philadelphia. He was in Philadelphia. I was in New Jersey. I left grad school, and we said, let's we were both like, we got to buy a property. We didn't know how. We didn't have any money. We knew nothing. We were clueless. We were in our 20s. But we're like, we got to buy a rental property. Let's just figure it out, So for a year, we took classes and just made cold calls. And you talk about sales, right? We went door to door. We did knock on everyone's door, outside of Philadelphia. Roxborough was an area that we really focused on.
Were you buying multifamily then?
Yeah. Well, we actually, our first deal was a duplex. And that's what we ended up. It wasn't like we wanted a duplex. We didn't know the power of multifamily. We were just like, oh, okay, this is who called us back. There was no grand strategy, right? You think about market analysis and all the things that, we do now. It's like, there was no market analysis. This area was close. We wanted a rental property, and that's how we did it. It was like, there was not a major grand plan. I think about that, and we got lucky, but it's, because it ended up being a good first project for us. But yeah, we called a gentleman, and I think this is a good tip for people looking for properties. He was a tired landlord, meaning the majority, I don't know the statistic, Maria, you may know, but the highest percent of people who own multifamilies in the United States are mom and pop, people. They're not these corporations. So, and often they're doing it on the side. They have a full-time job, and they might get to the point where they're just tired. And so one of the strategies at these courses we took said, okay, and this is I'm dating myself, but open the newspaper, go to the for rent ads, and make those calls. This is 2004. Yeah, this is 2004. So we didn't have what we have now, right? Facebook Marketplace. It was go to the newspaper.
You were running to the corner to pick up the newspaper from.
Exactly.
There was the City Paper and the Philadelphia Weekly.
Yep.
I would run to the corner box. There was a box on the corner. You could
right? And you call these folks. And I remember one gentleman said, "Yeah, I'll talk to you." And he ended up being that classic tired landlord. He was just like, I'm done with this duplex. I have one duplex. I have a full-time job. I don't want to deal with these tenants. So the thinking is if there's a lot of vacancy, right, at a property, there might be interest from that landlord to sell. And that was the kind of the thinking and the strategy we were taught. So that's why we went to the for rent ads. We didn't actually want to rent their property. We were like, hey, we're not interested in renting, but would you be interested in selling? That was the kind of, discussion. So he said, Les, I'll meet you. And then, we struck up a deal. The renovations weren't too bad, which is, I always suggest to people like, some of these folks, I have my first deal is going to have a, $100,000 renovation budget, and like, I hope someone on your team knows what they're doing, because property renovations can sink you very quickly if you don't know how to properly estimate and schedule and all those sort of things. So I'm grateful. I think our renovation budget, this is a small duplex, right? This is a row home, it could have been 1,400 square feet, the whole thing. So this is not a big property. But it was about $10,000, from my memory, about in terms of renovation, which in the grand scheme of things is not a large renovation budget. We knew a realtor, he helped us, we found some local people, renovated it, and we were kind of hit the ground running. We had to evict our first tenant within the first month, which we were like, oh, okay, this is what comes along with having tenants. You have to evict people sometimes. And that happens. I always tell people when you buy a multifamily, what they're used to and what you're going to put in place are two different things. So there's going to be attrition, there's going to be changeover, and quite honestly, you want some of that. So you get people singing off the same sheet of music with your lease and your rules and those sort of things. Anyway, that then brought us to New Jersey, and that's how we started really building our business from there.
So it didn't fall into your lap. It was a lot of long nights, a lot of early mornings, a lot of door knocking, a lot of phone calls.
Mm-hmm. A lot of no's.
A lot of no's. So that's over a decade ago. No, 16 years ago.
Quite some time ago.
Right. So what's happening today?
Yeah, we, I was saying this to someone, and, some people jump into, I think, a business because they have all this experience and they hit the ground running, and you're like, how long have you been doing this? What are you doing? Like, you're like shocked by their quick trajectory. That's not my husband and I's trajectory. We were like more like slow and steady. But yeah, we're mostly focused on, we really built our business by raising private money and going in with other people to buy larger and larger multifamily. It started with a 10 unit, and then that went to like an 18 unit in Philadelphia. And then that kind of slowly grew our portfolio. We just didn't get into large multifamily, which is what we're focused on now. But yeah, we own larger apartment complexes in 4 states. And that's what our focus is from a real estate perspective. Anywhere from 100 to 300 units is what we own in North Carolina and Kentucky. Our Southeast is really the focus for us right now, where we've sold a lot of stuff in the Northeast, where we had a lot in New Jersey. And then you start to get outpriced, right? Taxes, this and that. We owned quite a bit in Trenton. We got our start in Trenton. We bought a lot in Trenton early on. And we're still going to own a few key buildings, but we're selling some of the other smaller stuff. That's kind of where we are with our business plan and what we want to do. But yeah, our focus is mostly larger multifamily. Over the years, I think what stunted our growth for many years was we got involved with a lot of different things. We got kind of involved in flips and this and that. And we were just diluted, if you will, in terms of focus. And I've come to appreciate focus, because I forget who had said it. You go to these sessions and you always pick up one tip. And the person said, your business at some point should be a little boring. It shouldn't be this like sexy thing that there's like this new challenge. Like, it should be rinse and repeat. That's what, and then you get into a new thing and you pivot. And I think we pivoted way too quickly, too soon, and we were too green. That's just, as I look back, I'm grateful because we learned a lot of different things, certainly, and that's our path. But if I had to, recommend something to someone, I think it was a little naiveness and, it was youth. Not that I know everything now, but I'm older and you start to get a little smarter. So yeah, that's what our focus is now in terms of multifamily and real estate. At the time that we were flipping in Philadelphia, I met my now partner, Andressa, who we kind of went off and are doing something a little different than just core real estate investing. Her and I partnered. We were friends first for many years. And then we started partnering on some flips and new construction in Philadelphia. And we'd get together over coffee, Maria, and just chat about like, the challenges of wearing a lot of hats as women and as moms. Or, we talk about, all the meetups you go to, and it's just a little, especially in the investing world, it's a little male dominated, if you will. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a different energy, right, that happens. So her and I were like, wouldn't it be great if we just interviewed women that were investing? And we shared it with women who want to listen to it. And so we've like, let's create a community of other women that we can really empower them, empower ourselves along the way to create this kind of shared support network that we couldn't find, quite honestly, at the time. So we created it, and that's been 2 years in the making, but we're building a community, building a membership, and just really building a global place for women to get the support they need. So that's become, I love real estate, but when I think about what we're doing now, like this is like tying in all my like true passions and teaching and inspiring. And that's just like what gives me breath in the world, really. If that's all I could do, I would love to do that. So I feel like I finally found something that kind of combined all my interests. And we're talking about real estate investing, which I do love talking about. It's not that I don't like talking about it, but being able to help people and inspire them along the way is very, very cool. And you feel like you're purposeful. So yeah, that's kind of where I am today. But I am still actively investing, and actually we're focused on buying a vacation rental. That's our personal goal, not just business, but like our personal goal, where it's just owned by me and my husband, because we own a lot with other people. So we're really excited about just like getting into a throes of, and I'm excited because that's going to be one of my projects. So from a real estate investing perspective, that's one of my goals.
So that's a lot to unpack. So I'm going to go back for a second to a couple things. So one, yes, I agree. You had said that your business should be boring because it's the same thing over and over again, that you can almost do it in your sleep. And that is the secret, is your superpower is your focus in any business. And I'm glad that you brought that up, and that you said I was doing this and you were doing that. And I think that's an important lesson for people. Yeah. I think that a lot of times, Liz, that people want to pivot, not even pivot, that's the wrong word. Sorry. Squirrel. New thing. And it dilutes everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
Because you can't do everything. I picked my word this year. I don't know if you ever do this, but I've been doing it. Mine's mastery.
I like that. Mine's being present.
Yeah. I had that a few years back. That was my word a few years back. But I'd like to ask you a little bit more about your investing in the multifamily and in Kentucky, and why you picked that area. What's special about it, and why you are exiting on your properties here in the Northeast.
Sure. So, I wish, again, this wasn't like a grand plan, and it happened very, slowly, but it actually opened our eyes to just diversifying, if you will, because, we're kind of heavily into multifamily, but we're diversified from a regional perspective, if you will. And so that is important. When we made the decision from going our first out of state, because people always say it's always good to invest in, close to home, right? 30 minutes. But that becomes a little harder when you're in an area that's not as business friendly. And I always say, the more business friendly a state is, the more business friendly an area is, the more the jobs are going to follow. The economy follows, right? And then people follow. So again, there's a lot of economists, a lot of people who do market analysis that are way smarter than me, but that's just the basics of it in terms of like the friendliness of a local economy. New Jersey and where we were investing became just not as friendly in terms of incentives. It's almost like they didn't want us to buy property in some of the areas that we were working in. They made it hard and I think everyone should follow the rules, right? If they're, you can't just cut corners. You need to follow the rules and work with the municipality. I mean, we're very, very committed to that. But it was almost like more obstacles that needed to happen.
Right.
And it's just not. What's that?
A lot of red tape.
Yeah, a lot of red tape. And it's just like, is this red tape necessary? So
Right.
when we made our kind of our move from local, 30-minute radius was what we focused on for the most about 10 years of our investing. We said, okay, we really need to look elsewhere. And then we got this lead into a property in Philadelphia. It was our first out-of-state investing. And now at the time it's 40 minutes from Trenton, but it's a big deal because we're like, oh, it's a different area. But it was one step closer to what we wanted. We found it to be a little easier to deal with. We had our team who we were managing everything deal with that. And then we went to Pennsylvania. The big first step to like North Carolina, and then it was Kentucky, was, I think they said that the largest, I think New Jersey is the number one state where people are leaving currently and this is pre-COVID. This is not because of COVID or the pandemic. This was happening before COVID. And so, what's that?
Taxes.
Yeah, taxes and and then again from an investment perspective. So when we started looking in other areas, the Southeast started to become this area like, okay, people are moving there. We see growth happening there. You want to see job growth. You want to see population growth. You want to see a sense of business friendliness and incentives for businesses to come in. Businesses are not coming to New Jersey. Like what businesses are coming? No offense, but they're just not. They're moving south. They're moving to those areas. The other thing that we also looked at is job diversity. So that becomes really important. And in Kentucky, when we were doing analysis, and we had somebody on our team who is what they do is like analysis of markets. Like it's a science, well beyond my capabilities, quite honestly. So, but when we were talking with him, he's like, there's so many different jobs and industries that are happening here in this particular area that if one goes under, there's still other economies going. You know how it is when you're in an area and one company leaves or one thing isn't happening, all the jobs are gone. And then there's more of that, situation where people can't make their rent and pay their bills. So the other piece is supply and demand. The particular area, we're in Lexington, Kentucky. And there's a lot of good areas of Kentucky, and it's not the only place in the Southeast people are investing. But what was interesting was there's only so many places people can develop. That's a good sign, right? So something else to think about and to look at is supply and demand, because if people are doing a lot of development and building, and this, Maria, probably explain it much better than I can, but then it becomes a point where there's too much, right?
Yeah.
And so there should, again, what that balance is. I'm sure there's like a scientific way to look at that, but just from a general theory perspective, you want to look at an area that there is the demand is high and the supply is lower, right? That's the beautiful thing of real estate. So when we started to really look at this area in Kentucky, we also liked, here's another part too, when you start to look at new areas, it's not on the hottest market list. That's a good thing, in my opinion, because you're going to pay more for that, right? So someone said, should I invest in Austin, Texas? I don't know Austin, Texas market. I do know that is on a lot of lists, and it's still on a lot of lists. Are there good deals to be had in Austin? Probably. I mean, I'm a big believer. There's always good deals everywhere. But would that be an area that I'd look in? Unless it was like this super undervalued, no one knows about deal, maybe. But I like the markets that no one really is talking about yet. Lexington, Kentucky wasn't this booming market. They're like, oh, Lexington. Everyone wasn't talking about Lexington. Now it's getting a little more popular, especially in Kentucky. And as we sell, or if we look to sell, that will be good for us, right? But it wouldn't be good to buy. So it's always about time to buy, time to sell. And I think as you're looking at different markets, that's something also to think about is, where are people moving? Where are businesses moving? Where are jobs moving? People's the last one because they follow the jobs and the businesses. And also there's an affordability factor. People want affordable living, and that becomes, becomes everything. So putting all those pieces together with supply and demand, that became, okay, this is an area we want to take a bet on. And then it's building a team and all the other things that have to go into it when you don't live close to an area.
So in Kentucky and North Carolina, how many units do you have there now?
We own two buildings. We own two buildings there that are about one's 222, one's 167. So And they're about a mile from each other, which is great because then you start to build out a team.
You're
So we have two buildings there.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have so you have a whole team there that runs the buildings and
Yeah, so when you get to the scale, like when we've managed a lot of properties ourselves in our own in-house team. We've since shifted that where we really work with property management companies. I'm really grateful we self-managed things for many years because we learned the business and we learned what worked and what didn't. I think property management companies can get very slippery. They can tell you one thing, they're doing another thing. I mean, that can make or break. You don't make or break your real estate, your rental when you buy. It's the managing of it. It can sink you or it can make you thrive. And if you're having a property manager run your portfolio or your rental, that's everything. I mean, that's critical, right? This is a critical team member. This isn't someone who, you want to be light on who you hire. And we've hired property management companies that haven't worked, and it can be really tough. And so when you get to that scale, most people do then. Some people do have hired. They've hired a staff, and that's not off the table as we grow. But for us, it made sense to hire, a team because they're local and they know that local economy in a way that you're never going to know it. You could study it, you could figure it out. So we did find a property management company who we saw like they were in that market, and they knew that market very well. And they also had a lot of units under management in that market. That's a good sign. That means they're going to be there to stay. If someone's like, oh, we're looking to expand there, they could, but felt really good that they had 1,000 units already under management there. And it's somebody you can grow with, if you will, if you're looking to grow in that area or whatever units. If it's even a 10 unit and you're saying, I want to buy this 5 unit, this 10 unit, whatever amount, do they have properties already there? Are they managing properties in that area already?
Yeah, they have to have all the connections already
because they're going to be helping
with the local people so
Yep.
that they know
Absolutely.
the in-depths of a community.
Yeah, and that's critical. And you get that when you're managing your own properties, you know how important community is. When you're not there and you don't live there, you know how important theoretically community is, but you don't know that community. You don't know the struggles they have or the challenges they're going to have or any of those things, like the people that live there. It's just, it's really hard to get that if you don't have that local. We had a property management company there. Obviously, we still do. We also have a local 1 or 2 people that also walk the building for us and just walk outside and just kind of keep their eyes on it that live within 10 minutes of those buildings. So it's nice because the property management company has their own goals. They have your interest in mind. They should, but they're still not you, if you will. So we do have someone always within. We always have a local person, and we pay them hourly. We set it up in a way it's a win-win for them. It could be a realtor. It's a great opportunity where you create a relationship with someone there that knows the area. They don't have to walk all the units, but they can you kind of know stuff when you're walking a property. Things come up. It's not like there's just eyes on the property. So we either have them do that weekly and they send us reports and just updates and, hey, I saw this or I saw that.
Sure. So what is the cost per unit there?
Yeah. So when we're in Philadelphia, right, and you think about the cost, it could be especially like Jersey, $100 a door or something in that range, or in that ballpark. At least in New Jersey, there was a lot of the properties we were looking at. When we bought, I know the North Carolina number even better because we had a fully gut this 200 unit in North Carolina, not fully gut, but it was in really bad shape, and had 4 active drug dealers at the property when we bought it. So it was not only physically in needed help, but it just the way it was received in the community. So we had a huge turnaround there. When we bought it, it was $40 a door or so. So the cost to get into property, that was North Carolina. I want to say Kentucky was probably, I think it was like between 50 and 60, somewhere in that range. So it's significantly cheaper, right? Your money's going to go further overall.
$40,000 per unit.
Yeah. If you're going to, and again, it's scaled from the perspective of, numbers, right? It could be a little different if it's a small multi. It might be a little more.
And
but
then the rent is what per unit? on
What's
average?
that?
And then the rent is how much per unit?
Oh, I would say, I don't know our current rental numbers right now, but I mean, I know New Jersey, and I want to say it was probably somewhere in the ballpark of like a one bedroom, probably was five or six, $500, $600, somewhere in that range.
Oh, okay.
So it's cheaper too, right? So you have two different pieces there. You have cheaper rent, cheaper property, but you also then have like this whole value add proposition, which is anything. Whenever you're buying something, right? That's the goal, right? Is to add value. The North Carolina property we've turned around. It's been 3 years we've owned it, and it was you talk about turning around a 200 unit apartment building, right? And not physically being there all the time. It was an undertaking. I can't take full credit of it because we had a team, and it just took a team. We had to change property management companies midway. It was a lot there, but we're going to be selling it because it's time. Because when you have these larger properties, your investors want a return, right? They want you're not in there for the long, like 25 years, where you might be in a smaller multi that you own. These larger deals have so many investors that want their return, and sometimes there's a time to buy, there's a time to sell. So we've gotten a couple people interested, and I want to say we'll be between 75 and 100 a door because of the value add, and we got the rents up too, and the it's a little more of it moved up in terms of like the way people look at it and how it's received in the community. So we're gonna 75, I think it is, and so it's almost like significantly we're gonna be selling it significantly more, but the value is there too, right? Rents and
Sure.
The property was a half vacant. I mean, a 200 unit that's half vacant. It was not, that was pretty dire.
Yeah. It sounds like it. It sounds like it was a great opportunity for your group to get involved and to take that.
A lot. It took, it took longer than everything takes longer, whether it's a 2 unit or a 200 unit. I don't care how many units. It always takes longer than you think.
I don't think it's just in real estate development.
Everything
takes longer. I think it's everything takes longer.
No
matter if you think it's going to take a week, double it, a month. You look at things and you go, wow, a whole quarter passed and that still didn't get done.
Exactly. And it's having grace with that. And I know for me, it's like, you have to, if you're someone has a goal and you're ambitious, and then you're like, I haven't achieved that. It's like, you could really beat yourself up a lot. And, we had these lofty goals when we started, and then your goals shift a little bit and say, what do I really want? I want more time. I want more peace. I want more of this. I want more of that. And, that's where I am right now, is that, do I have to achieve every goal? Like I always, have in most of my adult life. It's like, I don't want it to rob my peace, or my joy, because
you want to achieve the most important ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And do it in a peaceful way. Do it in a way that I'm not killing myself, and that's kind of where I am right now. I don't know if I would have had that same view when I started. I probably would have done whatever I did. We did do whatever it took. I mean, we did stuff that was crazy, now looking back. So.
I agree. You wake up one day though, and then everything shifts.
Yeah. I think having kids helped because, my husband and I both were really focused on our different things in our business, and then me continuing to work and then working with him. And it was like ups and downs, and quitting my job and going back to it, and all the things that happened, especially around 2008. We lived through that and just figuring that out. But I see having kids really created this way for me to be like, you can't work 24 hours a day, and you physically. So I think it created this interesting balance for me, or the desire for the balance was really born when I had kids. So I'm appreciative of that, and I'm still figuring it out. And there's mornings I get up really early if I'm with my daughter, because she's not in school yet. So I'm really trying to be home with her 2 days. Like a day like this, my husband's hanging with her today, and I wanted to be here with you. But, most of the day today, I'll be with her, and I'm not going to check my phone. And then this is new for me. I'm really working through this. So, but maybe tomorrow morning I'm going to get up early and work at least 2 hours to catch up on a few things that I know I need to get done. So I don't know, kids have forced me to create balance, and I'm appreciative of it, because I think I would have just been this workaholic if not, and I have a 7-year-old and an almost 4-year-old now that's giving me this opportunity, if you will, to create balance, which is what our mission is with Invest Her too. It's like, you can create financial freedom for yourself, but you're doing it in a way that you have peace and is balanced and is joyful. Some people may have all the money they want in the world and they're not happy. They're not peaceful. I don't want that, So
Yeah, it's definitely not about that.
Yeah.
Sure. So invest her.
Mm-hmm.
I was online about a couple years ago, and I saw a video about invest her, and I reached out to Andressa, and that it's got to be 3 years, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly 3 years. Yeah, we started our podcast. It's coming up to our 3-year anniversary. Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I reached out to her and I said, we must talk. You're in Philadelphia. You're an investor. I'm a broker. I work with the investors and investors. And I would love to hear your story. And so that's how we all met.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then we met at the
meetup in South Jersey.
The Mid-Atlantic. Oh, yeah. Meetup.
That's right. That's right. You were at the Mid-Atlantic where we had 2 tables of 20 women sitting together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I had started that group we had boots on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Monthly dinners. Unfortunately, we haven't had monthly dinners due to the pandemic.
I know.
So, but I like to dive a little deeper into InvestHer.
Yeah.
And everything that's going on. So you have a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
You have a meetups now. You're in how many locations now? 27 or?
We have actually 35 meetups. Right
35.
Now.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
35. You're growing.
Yeah, across the country, and we have one soon to be 2 in Canada. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, we're excited to expand there. I talked to a woman yesterday, and she's and it's the meetups are interesting in that we started with a podcast, but I think that's where you and I met first. It is in South Jersey. We kind of called it our Philadelphia group, but then we kind of met in South Jersey and Philly, and we had one meetup. And in conversations I've had with different people, and on the Facebook community we were growing, and women are like, well, do you have a meetup here and there? And I'm like, no, but I can't start one in Arizona from here. So it was almost like you want to start one. And I, who knew what that ever and even meant. We knew we were committed to the mission. We knew we wanted women who were committed, and also create a win-win, right? When you run a meetup, you get speakers, you do this, you do that, but it's creating a safe space for women is really important, because people are like, why do you need a safe space? What are you even talking about there? But I can't tell you how many meetups I've been to, Maria, where women come up to you and say, this is before COVID, because most of them are virtual right now. They come up to you and say, thank you. Thank you so much for having this space for us. Because you go to these other meetups and you get asked, how many doors do you own? How long have you been doing this? Are you here with your husband? And not every person. And I don't mean to it's not a male bashing or us versus them. I love men. I love my husband. They're great people. I have very good relationships with men. I really do. But there's something very special about getting a group of women together to support each other. It's safe. It's comfortable. It's authentic. It's real. We're not comparing our balance sheets. Most women don't start, how much money do you have? I've gotten asked that from men. I've gotten asked that multiple times. Are you guys, how much money do you make passively each month? What? I don't know you. You're asking me that? Seriously? That's awkward. It's awkward, and you're like, networking 101. Let's get some tips on that. But I don't know. I'm very passionate about creating this space for women because it's needed, and women feel really comfortable with each other, and they feel like they ask these questions that they don't get answered, or they're looked at as morons, and they don't feel that way when they're in our meetups or in our community. And that's really cool, because it's giving them that confidence. And it's not like we're going to just work with women, but it's really neat, because then they're going to be asked to keynote at these events that are men and women, and that's what we want. We want to provide this really neat environment for women to get the confidence, the knowledge, the support, so that they can go do their thing with their businesses that include everybody, of course. And not that I don't want to include men, but because we have a lot of great male allies of what we're up to, but I think it's important to have a safe space. I do. And I will continue to feel that way. And I think it's important. I think it's okay. And I think
We don't need to apologize for it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's even a better approach because sometimes I feel like I have to explain it. I've gotten asked that question quite a bit on podcasts.
You don't
So
need to.
I get a little defensive, you know.
Yeah, it's all good. I admire everything that you and Andressa have done. I think it's fantastic for the real estate community and for women.
Yeah.
And
so that's where it started with the podcast and then our Facebook community and then meetups. And then we got asked along the way, Maria, we didn't start this as a business, but a lot of women over a year in were like, okay, we should really form an LLC here. We really got to do this because this looks like it could potentially be, this is starting to move into a business, not just a pure passion, which is really, one of our intentions when we started, and it's still key. But we started getting asked a lot, like Maria, you probably get this, where anyone in business, any entrepreneur, if you start getting the same question asked, right? Like, hey, can you help me with this? Or do you do this? Or can you guys do this? So for a year, we spent a year building out like a membership where women can on a monthly basis join our kind of community, a little more of like a paid community, if you will, of content, community, masterminding. And we kind of took everything women wanted. They weren't getting in all the real estate stuff out there, quite honestly. And we put something that was one of a kind together. And we took over a year to do this, creating the content and the mindfulness and the like looking at your life. And it's not just about how to flip a property, but that's important, but you have to also look at the rest of your life and what are your money goals. So we just launched that a few months ago. And then we launched a virtual summit last year, which was the first time in almost 2.5 years that, we charged for anything. So we want to create this free global community, but as women want and need are asking us for things, we're putting together kind of offerings and things to serve. So we're excited by that. And we feel like that's, women are getting what they need. And even if you just join a meetup, and you never do anything else with us, you're getting what you need to, which is really what we're up to. So
it's a great mission. It's a great mission. So when is your next virtual summit? Do you have anything on the books?
Yeah, we just got together and laid out literally, like, how it is with content. I'm sure you do this. You take like a day to like, okay, got to figure out what we're going to be providing people and the podcast and this. So we had a meeting this week actually and laid out all of our content for our membership and just what are women asking for, needing, and what we're going to teach and get other experts in. And then the summit we planned, we're going to be planning for early June. We're going to do another virtual summit. Our goal is to get like a really cool in-person, like awesome investor kind of conference, but that's not going to happen this year, I don't think, obviously with everything. And I don't want to have that intention and then it have to get moved to being virtual. So we're going to just set it up as virtual. And then hopefully 2022, we'll be in a place where we can do something like that.
Well, hopefully by 2022, we are
hopefully, who knows?
In action of being together where we can go ching ching.
I know. And I really, what really gets me excited when I think about that, Maria, because I visualize, I visualize things I really want to see. And what I see is women who are so experienced, they've done all this stuff, but they're supporting other women who are kind of learning and growing and starting out. And then the people starting out are learning and growing and giving something to those women. And that's what I love about what we're doing, because there's women who can give and get. You have something to give, you have something that you need. I have things I can give, but there's things that I need help with. I can't say I don't need help with anything. That would be crazy.
We all do.
Yeah, we all do. And to think you don't is crazy town, I think.
Every coach has a coach.
Right. Absolutely. So that's what I see this cocktail hour and women just like, having a drink together and chatting. And it's just like this really cool mix of all different ages, all different backgrounds, and women just helping each other.
So let's talk about the book, the only woman in the room.
So what's interesting with that is that idea got born out of the Mid-Atlantic Summit. I didn't know that at the time. What's that?
Tell me more.
Yeah. So when we were talking, so Ashley Wilson compiled the book and had this idea. Her inspiration for the book came when she attended. I met her there, and Andressa and I met her there, and she's become a partner of ours and investor. She was a meetup leader. very active investor. She focuses also on larger apartment complexes. She's flipped. She's got construction knowledge. She's good. She's amazing. But we met her there. We were like, Ashley, we're going to do this lunch thing, and you were there, and we kind of like, let's put tables together at lunch for all the women that are in our community. And so we did that, but this was like in a sea of about 500 people at least. And we had these 2 tables of 20 women about, if that. So I didn't know that. I was so excited that we were getting women together, and it's like part of the investor kind of community. But Ashley had a completely different perspective, right? She's just like, we're like the only woman in the room, like that came up for her. Not that title exactly, but that feeling. And so she's like, wow, how many times do you feel that way? And she just kind of went down this journey. And I think that day when she was on her way home with her husband, she said, I'm going to write a book. And it's going to be called, I don't know what it's going to be called, but it's going to be about how, you're kind of sometimes the only person there, or feeling that way, and how to move through that, and how to get the knowledge and inspiration so you don't feel that way anymore. So that was her inspiration, which we never knew. And then fast forward, she was one of our meetup leaders, and we would be in contact with her all the time. And she said, hey, this was early last year. She reached out to us, me and Andres, and said, hey, I'm writing a book. I'd love for you both to contribute to it. It's going to be called The Only One in the Room. It's going to be 20 women's stories. And I'm really trying to get a diverse group and figure out one woman who's done this and different types of niches and all those kinds of things. And I'd love for you both to contribute. And we're like, yeah, we're in, no problem. But like what that embodies, right? The theme of the book, the point of the book, how it'll help women was so aligned with our mission and what we're up to. I didn't want to just contribute to it. So I said, well, what are you doing about publishing? She's like, I'm going to self-publish, I mean, what are my choices here? Like, I'm not going to just go to I want to make this happen. So I don't want anything to get in my way. I'm making this happen. It's happening this year. And she's a determined woman. So I said, well, what if we published it, and we didn't know what that meant, what does it even mean when you don't know really about publishing? She goes, okay, I'm in, let's do this. Let's do it together. We'll collaborate and make it part of Invest Her as an offering. And then we got into talking about doing that moving forward. So we're going to be releasing another book this September. It's going to be a woman's voice about something. So we really wanted to create an arm, if you will, that showcased women's voices in this from a, not just real estate, but, hopefully all the other pieces that are important, right? Self-care and all those sort of things. So that kind of started that idea. We're like, okay, what do we get ourselves into, right? Because there's so many pieces that go into actually getting a book done. But, the women that contributed were great. And that was our first book, right? The one that you had to get 20 women's voices together and a timeline. And you think about that, right? And Ashley did it great. She did great. And she ran it. And we very proud of it. And it really highlights so many different voices. And the feedback we've gotten from women has been really positive, because it's not just inspiration or feel good, but it's like, you see these women, we just said it earlier, like you see these women and you're like, wow, like, how did they get there? Right. It didn't happen overnight. And what challenges did they have? We all have challenges, all different types of challenges. And you see that in that book, some of these women who went through poverty, some of these women who were abused, some of these women who, like for me, never knew about passive income, and I wanted something bigger in my life, right? So it doesn't have to all be the same challenge, if you will, but you see yourself in someone. And that's what I've heard from a lot of women. And when you see yourself in someone, something's born in you that you can do it. And I think it was Oprah said, when I saw Barbara Walters interviewing someone, it was born in me that I can do that too. And so that's the point of the book. And that's the point of why we have women speak at our meetups. That's the point of why when we do our virtual summit, we have women speaking. That's what we're up to. So it's like, there's something beautiful about that. And I'm like, something I want to work on. She could do that. Something subconsciously gets born in you too. So that's what the point of the book is.
I love that. You're making me tear up. You're making me tear up, because everybody needs that vote of confidence, even the people that you think don't. There might be something that they're going through that you don't know anything about.
Yeah.
And so everybody needs like something they don't know what it is until they see it.
Yeah. And it's just like, and it's also the part of like, part of us as women, as people, we're always helping other people. And we're always like, we're concerned. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about, the strength of a woman, because you are wearing so many hats. You are kind of like, I think, and I'm being super general, but in my experience, but then you go back to your own world and you're like, I really need some inspiration here for this area of my life. Like my relationships are going really well, but I gotta really do something about my health or whatever it might be. And it's like, you get that support for that mentor for that particular area. And that's what's beautiful about it. You don't have to have one mentor for all your areas of your life, but it's neat to just, start to say, okay, what is that person doing well? Why are they doing it well? And how do I do some of that too? How can I do that? And it's possible. It's more than possible. It's just we got to get out of our own way of thinking and our own self usually. That's usually the limiting factor, right? Is ourselves.
Oh, 100%. Always. And one of the things I think is really important, because the only way to succeed to where you want to go is to fail and fail again and fail again and get back up and keep going. And the difference between the person that has massive success and that has just a little bit of success is how quickly they've gotten up in between the failures.
Yeah.
Because we can let that just say, okay, well, forget it. I'm not going to do that. It's not working. I've been trying for 3 years. It's still not working.
Yeah.
I mean, you've hit your head against the wall. How many times, Liz?
I didn't mention this with you today, but there's been so many times, like, when I quit my job twice. And the first time I quit it was a year before the market crashed in 2008. And so we weren't making the cash flow. We weren't making any money, quite honestly, from our rentals. We bought some of them too high. We had savings. We're like, worst comes to worst, what will happen? Because I am a pack rat. That was one of the good things I got from my parents, is that I just save and save and save. So, and we ended up going through all that money, Maria, like all of it, and not building our business. My husband and I were at each other's throats. Money was a stress. And he's like, we don't change something, we're going to get a divorce and we're going to go bankrupt and lose all of our properties. I'm like, that was like a wake up call. And so I can keep going with challenges, quite honestly, but money lost, money stolen from our investors, like close to $1 million, like, bad shit. And it's like, you don't give up and have faith, and you have to learn and pivot and grow, especially when other people are involved. I mean, I don't know if I would have given up. I mean, anytime we wanted to give up and we didn't give up, we did have, it was us, but we also had like, someone involved with us, a parent, what in terms of money, in terms of our projects. So we always had this drive to make things right, always. Even if you have to bring money to the table, right? Whatever it is, you figure it out, and you take care of the people that are involved in anything with you. But I said to my husband, ironically this morning, so weird that we talked about this morning, because I said to him, for us, we couldn't have given up. We had other people involved. He's like, yes, we could have, Liz. If we were scumbags, we could have given up and just said, sorry, this is how this went. And, this is, the risks when you're investing. I said, we would have never done that. He's like, we didn't do that, but people do that, Liz.
That's right.
And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's not just about, it just gave me that, like, yeah, we didn't give up. And,
And that's why when you're doing business with people, you want to work with people that, have a high level of integrity and will go without, just to make sure that everybody else is made whole. It's the same thing as a business, right? As entrepreneurs, business owners go without pay a lot of times.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I have many, many different times, and I've never missed a payroll ever.
Yeah.
Ever, ever, ever. Everybody would be paid before that would ever happen.
Yeah.
Even going into savings, right?
Absolutely. And
but I know I've heard from lots of different people how they didn't make their payroll. I'm like, how could that be? How could you not be paid? And I've heard that, and I think, wow, that person really has little or no integrity. So it's all about getting into business with the right people, and knowing that they're going to do the right thing no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, like, I hang my hat on, say, I'm going to do the right thing no matter what, even if I have to eat crow.
Yeah, I mean, in a short story, because it's a long story, but in a short story, um, we worked with basically a 1031 exchange. Very, very quick. 1031 exchange is when you have a custodian that you're selling one property, you're making a capital gains, you made 100 grand, you're putting that 100 grand with a custodian who's holding it until your next property is ready, until the next closing. And there's a certain time, there's a lot of rules around that, I'm not going to get into, but that was what happened. We sold the property in Philadelphia, the 18 unit, and we had about $750,000 from capital. It was about 500,000 from investors, and about 250 was the returns. Great project. They were very happy. Great return for them. They all wanted it to go into our next property, which was North Carolina. And we were about a week away from closing the North Carolina deal, gave it to the custodian that we Googled it, found someone who had a lot of clients, vetted in our way, seemed like the right person. And long story short, they ended up being like a mini Bernie Madoff, basically stealing close to, like, I think $15 million of people's money. So ours was like literally a drop in that bucket. But regardless, we were a week away, from closing on a building, right, that we didn't have. Now we're shy. We didn't need 750 because some of that was capital to renovate. We needed about 500 to close. And we were fully raised if that money obviously we thought was there. So this is 2 weeks before Christmas, 3 years ago. So this doesn't always happen when you're early in your career. But anyway, long story short, because you built relationships, you start to work with people. We got a short-term loan from a couple people, a few people that were in our network. I think it was like 2 or 3 people who we got that 500 taken care of from for interest. We paid the interest. So we got to closing, and then we ended up giving up pretty much most of our ownership of the building to the investors to make them whole, so that they wouldn't have missed a beat had they really been in the deal with the money. Again, very, very short way to explain that, but that was tough, right?
Oh.
That was very, very tough.
Money back?
What's that?
Did you get the money back?
We've gotten about half the money back, because what this guy did pretty much was buy a bunch of property, buy a bunch of assets, which was in hindsight good that he did, because he could have done other things with that money and never had an asset to his name. And then everybody's
in jail.
I think he's in jail. Yeah, FBI called us. It was a big deal.
Wow.
Yeah, like, and again, it was like super scary. But it's
But the remarkable thing is that you were able to find the solution to come out of it and to make everybody whole, even though it cost you financially, but you had to do the right thing because you were the ones who were safeguarding that.
We were stewards of the money. We've always had that way of being. And I'm like, and now that's the building that we're going to sell, that we doubled in so that building will make those investors money, and they're very happy. And even the percent that we own, which is pretty small, it'll be a win for us too. So it's going to come out all fine, but it's geez, you talk about getting your teeth kicked in, but you move through it, and you do what's right. Thank God. I said to my husband, thank God that guy's not my husband, and you're my husband.
Right.
I mean, to be grateful for, and I was just like, okay, what can we be grateful for? Because I'm not feeling gratitude in this moment. And it didn't, we were very upset for like a few days. And then you're like, okay, we got to move through that. We got to get to closing, and let's keep going. We could be upset, but we can't be upset, and we can't be in depression now, because we have all these people's money we got to figure out.
We can be upset for as long as we need to be, but we still have to take action.
Yeah. You can't let that upset stop you. And it has to propel you. I could talk about it now, and hopefully people get how important 1031 exchanges, custodians are, because they're not all created equal. It's like the wild, wild west. Right. Anyone can become a custodian, obviously. And it's not credentialed. It's credentialed, but it's not like backed by like, like the banks and the institutional lending. It's not like that, but
Wow.
it should be. But anyway, yeah. So make sure you get a good referral. If you need to do 1031, get a good referral from your accountant or your attorney, which we should have done. But it's
all about learning, right?
Yeah, learning and growing and you have to take responsibility. We chose that custodian, and we take responsibility for that. Obviously, we didn't steal the money. I can't take responsibility because I didn't do that. But you have to be mindful of the people you're bringing in and touching your money. Like really scrutinous. And something that my husband and I both shared is we're pretty trusting people, and it served us well. But I think we've gotten very I won't say shrewd because I don't think I'd ever describe myself as shrewd, but we've gotten a little tougher and a little more scrutinous over the years. I think that's what we've learned as a learned skill for our way we do business, where early on you're just like, oh, they seem like a nice person, versus like, so that kind of, I think that was a big learning we had. Again, not that we ever intended for money to get stolen. We did research. And this guy had.
It's not your fault. It wasn't your fault, but it's your responsibility. So
right. Exactly. What can I do differently? This guy had like so many different referrals and positive things about his company. And it just, so I don't know if that was made up or not, but hey, can't worry about that,
Well, you have so many amazing things going on. I love your energy and spirit. It's just, you could see how genuine you are and how much you really do want to help your investors and how you want to help the real estate herd community. And I'm excited for your journey and to continue to watch it and to be part of it in any way I can. And I appreciate you, Liz, and thank you for being on Be the Solution and giving us a lot of learning lessons this morning, even making me cry.
I'm sorry I made you cry.
It's all good. It's all good.
But thank you for having me on, Maria. I love the theme of being the solution, because that's what it's really about, right? It's like you can expecting anyone or anything to change except for you is just a lot of work to even try to embark on. So I love the concept and just the idea of that being your theme. So appreciate you having me on this morning.
Thank you very much. And you have a great weekend.
Yes, you do the same.
Bye-bye.